A bankrupt man, walking alone in the rain, stops cold when he sees a barefoot girl solving impossible equations with chalk on the sidewalk. Strangers laugh when he says he wants to help her, but what he discovers in her notebook will shake everything. He thought he knew about genius, survival, and the system built to forget people like her. Stay with us till the end, because this story doesn't just surprise you, it changes you. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel, like the video, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's jump into the story. The rain had been falling since morning, cold and steady, soaking everything in its path. Gray clouds hung low over the city of Portland. As if the sky itself was tired, on the courthouse steps stood a man who didn't bother with an umbrella. His coat was soaked, his shoes squished with every step, but he didn't move. His name was Kellen Reed, once a rising star in ecotech. Now a forgotten name in a dying news cycle. Just minutes ago, he heard the final words he had been dreading. "The appeal is denied," the judge said without emotion. With that, everything was gone. The company, the patents, the house, even the dog someone else now walked. He had no investors left, no friends calling to check in, no one but himself and the rain. Kellen's lawyer, who had once bragged about their groundbreaking case, walked off silently. He didn't say goodbye, didn't even look back. Just left with the same briefcase Kellen had once gifted him. Kellen stared at the street ahead, water pooling around the curb, cars hissing past. Some people looked at him. Most didn't. No one recognized him anymore, and that stung more than the cold. He turned down a narrow alley that led toward the shelter. His steps were slow, not because he was tired, but because he had nowhere he really needed to be. The shelter wasn't bad. The beds were clean. The staff were kind, but every night felt like judgment each time he laid on that thin mattress. He saw everything he lost in the ceiling cracks, but something shifted that night. Just before he reached the corner, out of the corner of his eye, he noticed movement under an old storefront awning. A small figure crouched near the sidewalk, her fingers white from chalk dust. At first, he thought she was just another street kid drawing flowers or stars, but then he got closer, and his breath caught. She wasn't drawing pictures, she was writing numbers, symbols, long chains of equations. Her hoodie was soaked, her feet bare, but her focus was sharp, unbothered. Each line of chalk was neat, deliberate. Like she had done this 1,000 times. Kellen stopped walking, drawn in by something he didn't understand. He crouched a few feet away, watching silently. The girl didn't look up. Her hand moved with rhythm, her lips slightly parted as if whispering thoughts to herself. People walked by. Some glanced down and kept going. One tossed a coin near her foot. The chalk girl didn't even flinch. Kellen saw what she was doing now. Advanced mathematics. Complex variables, calculus, equations he hadn't thought about since his days at university. And yet here she was, maybe 9 years old, solving them like she was brushing her teeth. "Hey," he said gently, not wanting to scare her. She paused, looked up briefly, her eyes sharp green. Not frightened, just tired. "What are you doing?" he asked, trying not to sound too curious. "Nothing," she said softly, then went back to writing. He didn't push, just sat beside her, letting the rain do the talking. A security guard stepped out of a nearby building and frowned. "Hey, she can't be here," the guard barked, waving his flashlight. Before Kellen could think, he said, "She's with me." He didn't know why he said it, it just came out. The guard gave him a skeptical look, shrugged, then walked away. The girl stood up, stuffed the chalk into a small Ziploc bag, and began walking. Kellen stood too, hesitating before following her. "What's your name?" he asked as they reached the streetlight. "Noah," she replied, just that, no smile, no questions. "Do you live around here?" He asked again. "No," she said, and that was all. They walked in silence, both soaked, both hollow in their own ways. At the next corner, she stopped, turned slightly. "You don't have to follow me," she said, not harshly, just honest. Kellen smiled a little. "I'm not, just walking," she nodded. then walked off into the shadows. He watched until she disappeared, then turned back toward the shelter. That night, he couldn't sleep. He kept seeing her barefoot, solving math problems in the rain. The next morning, he stood at the same spot with 2 cups of cheap coffee. The rain had let up, but the sky was still heavy. He waited for 20 minutes, maybe 30. Noah didn't come. The day after, he came again. Then again the next day. On the 3rd morning, she appeared from behind a dumpster, eating crackers from a crumpled wrapper. "You're still here," she said, not surprised. "I brought you something," he replied. Handing her the coffee, she sniffed it, sipped it, then said, "You're not very good at lying." He laughed, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. "I guess I'm not." And with that, their story quietly began, not with grand plans or promises, but with coffee, chalk, and the girl who didn't look away. The next few mornings followed the same quiet rhythm. Kellen arrived before the sun rose, holding 2 steaming cups of coffee. He always waited by the same broken mailbox near the corner where he'd first seen Noah. He didn't know if she would come again, but something in him said she would. On the 4th morning, she appeared, walking carefully over the cracks in the sidewalk. Her hoodie looked even more worn now, her jeans torn at the knees, but her eyes were still sharp, still watching everything without looking directly at anything. She stopped a few feet from him, arms crossed. "You always wait here?" she asked, not suspicious, just curious. "Only when the coffee's hot," Kellen replied with a small grin. She took the cup, sniffed it again like before, and this time nodded. They didn't talk after that. They just sat by the wall as the city woke up around them. Some days, Noah would write equations in chalk, just like that first night. Other days, she'd just sit with her knees pulled to her chest, quietly eating crackers or an old granola bar. Kellen never pushed her, never asked more than one question at a time. It was like learning a language made of silence, eye flickers, and half smiles. Started noticing how she moved, always aware of exits, always calculating distance. When cars drove by too slow, her shoulders tensed. And when people looked too long, she stepped back. She was only a child, but her reflexes had grown sharp from surviving. And Kellen, who once survived his own storms, understood one morning. After she finished writing a line of complex symbols, he asked, "Where did you learn to do that?" Noah wiped her fingers on her jeans. "Books, mostly." "Which books?" he asked gently. She hesitated, then replied, "Any I could find." That was the first real opening, and it told him everything she hadn't been taught. She had learned herself, no classes, no teachers, just her mind and whatever pages she could get her hands on. That kind of hunger didn't come from school. It came from survival. Kellen knew he had to do something, anything, to help her. He walked into the local social services office later that day and asked if he could become a guardian. The woman behind the desk looked him up and down, her eyes pausing on his shoes. "Do you have a job?" she asked. "Not at the moment," he answered honestly. "A permanent residence?" "A shelter bed," he said. Her voice softened, but not kindly. "Sir, this isn't realistic." He left with a thin pamphlet and thicker frustration. That night, he returned to the corner, sat next to Noah, and told her nothing. She didn't ask where he'd been. She just handed him a piece of chalk. He smiled and drew a smiley face. Next to her formula one evening, they met a woman named Lena. She ran a small coffee cart around the block and had been watching them for a few days. "You two are regulars now," she said with a warm tone and tired eyes. Noah gave her a shy glance, but didn't speak. Kellen introduced himself, and they chatted quietly. He told Lena part of the truth, enough to explain that Noah was special, but invisible to the system. Lena's expression didn't change, but she listened closely. Finally, she said, "I used to be a school counselor before the budget cuts." She looked at Noah's chalk writing, eyes narrowing in surprise. "This isn't just smart," she said softly. "This is ... different." Kellen nodded. "She sees the world in a way most people miss." Lena gave him her number. "If you're serious about helping her, You'll need all eyes. The next day, Kellen started filming small clips, short videos of Noah solving equations. He didn't show her face, only her hands, her chalk, her patterns. He wanted to show proof to someone who might believe it. Noah didn't mind, but she didn't like being watched. People look and see what they want. She told him. What do you mean? He asked. They see a kid in a hoodie, not a mind, she whispered. Kellen didn't have an answer for that. Because she was right, as the days passed, something between them began to shift. They shared more coffee, more quiet, more pieces of themselves. Kellen talked about his past. Not all of it, just enough to make her feel less alone. Noah listened with that same focused silence she gave her math. One rainy afternoon, she handed him a piece of paper. It was a puzzle, hand-drawn, complex. Layered, he studied it for 10 minutes, then gave up. I don't know what this is. He admitted. That's okay, she said. I don't either yet. And for the first time, Kellen saw something new, not just survival, not just brilliance. He saw hope in a girl who had stopped expecting it. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew this much. He wasn't going to stop showing up, and she wasn't going to stop drawing. They were building something between the coffee and chalk, something fragile, but real. And while the world kept walking past them, Kellen and Noah kept sitting on that sidewalk, solving puzzles only. They understood. The notebook changed everything. Kellen found it one morning under a stack of newspapers Noah had used to dry her shoes. Its cover was faded, the corners bent, the pages soft from too much rain. He opened it slowly, not sure what to expect. What he found inside made his breath catch. It wasn't just scribbles or doodles. It was math, but not like anything he remembered. The pages were full of patterns, equations, notes in tiny handwriting. Some pages had shapes folded into other shapes, like a puzzle inside a dream. He flipped page after page, eyes wide, heart pounding. Some of the equations looked like they came from advanced physics journals. Others were new, things he didn't even understand but could feel were important. There was no way a child should know this, and yet, here it was. He asked Noah about it later that day. Where did you learn all this? He asked, holding the notebook carefully. She shrugged. I didn't learn it. I just think about it. Kellen stared at her, unsure what to say. He spent the night scanning every page with his phone. Then he posted a few of the simpler ones on a small online forum for math hobbyists. He didn't say who wrote them, just asked, can anyone explain this? Within hours, the post exploded. Some users said it was fake, others said it was brilliant, but one reply stood out. From a professor named Dr. Rafe Simmons, he said, this isn't undergraduate work. Whoever wrote this sees the world differently. Please contact me. Kellen did, and the next day, they set up a meeting. Dr. Simmons worked at a private college just outside the city. He was older, with kind eyes and messy hair that stuck out in every direction. When he met Noah, he didn't treat her like a child or a project. He simply asked, can you explain this one to me? And handed her a printout. Noah glanced at it, then began to talk, slow, clear, no ego. Just focus, as she spoke, Doctor. Simmons sat quietly, only nodding or asking short questions. After 15 minutes, he looked at Kellen and said, she's not just smart. She's something else entirely. Kellen smiled, feeling hope press against his chest like light through a crack. But that hope didn't last long. The next morning, a woman named Marcy from Child Protective Services showed up at the shelter. She wore a beige coat, held a clipboard, and spoke in a voice that didn't change tone. We received a report about a minor living on the street under your supervision, she said. Kellen tried to explain about the coffee, the chalk, the math, the notebook. Marcy didn't smile, didn't nod, just asked, do you have custody of this child? No, but I'm trying to get it, he said. Trying, she repeated. Like the word offended her, Noah sat on the edge of the hallway. Silent, she didn't look scared, but she looked tired of being asked about things no one really wanted to hear. Marcy said they'd need to evaluate the situation and left without giving a timeline. Kellen felt the air leave his lungs as the door closed behind her. Later that day, Noah asked him, "Are they going to take me?" He wanted to lie, but he couldn't. "I don't know," he said, "but I won't let them do it without a fight." She nodded just once, then went back to writing numbers in the dust on the floor. Kellen met with Dr. Simmons again and begged for help. "Can we use the notebook? The video clips?" The professor shook his head. "Without proof of legal guardianship, the school district won't even see her." "But she's clearly gifted," Kellen said. "They don't care about that," Simmons replied. "Not when it doesn't come in the right package." The words hit hard. The right package, not a girl in old clothes, not a man with no address. The system didn't see them, not truly that night. Noah didn't sleep. She just sat by the window, watching. Rain slipped down the glass. "Why don't they believe us?" she asked. "Because they never see people like us," Kellen whispered. "They see danger, not potential." The next day, Kellen tried one more school. He brought Noah's notebook, her chalk drawings, even a letter from Dr. Simmons, the front desk worker barely looked at him before saying, "We can't assess a student without enrollment or parental consent." "But she's not enrolled," Kellen said. "Exactly," the woman replied. As he walked out, he felt a strange mix of anger and helplessness, like he was fighting a wall with his bare hands. Noah waited for him near the bus stop, her face calm. He sat beside her and didn't say anything for a while. Then she asked, "Do you ever think they'll listen?" "No," he said, "but I think we'll make them look." And so they kept going, not because they had a plan, but because giving up wasn't an option anymore. They weren't just solving math problems now. They were trying to solve a system that had never seen them in the first place. Kellen never saw the men arrive. They came in the afternoon, clean suits, sharp voices, legal documents in their hands. They said they were from an educational foundation, here on behalf of Noah. They said she had been identified as a high-priority intellectual asset. The shelter staff didn't understand the words, but they saw the government seals and didn't argue. By the time Kellen returned from picking up donated clothes, Noah was gone. His coffee spilled on the ground as he ran from room to room calling her name. A volunteer handed him the paper with the signature and the seal. They said it was for her safety. The man mumbled. Kellen didn't hear him. His ears buzzed with panic. His hands shook as he read the words, "temporary guardianship and intellectual custody." Noah had been taken, not with violence, but with permission, he called. Lena first, then Dr. Simmons, then every contact he could remember. No one had answers. No one knew where she was, but he had a feeling deep and cold. She hadn't just been taken to a school. She had been taken into a system built to keep people like her out of reach. He finally heard from Lena 2 days later. "I found something," she said. "There's a private lab on the city's edge, funded by a tech group with defense ties." Kellen remembered the name, an old rival company from his early career. They had wanted to buy his work once. He had refused. Now they had Noah, and it all made sense. She wasn't just special, she was valuable. They didn't want to teach her. They wanted to use her, turn her mind into something they could profit from. Kellen met with a man named Ronan, an old contact from his company days. Ronan had once owed him a favor, and he still had access to security systems. Together, they planned a quiet break-in, not to fight, just to find her, just to see her. Ronan slipped him a temporary access badge and whispered, "You've got 10 minutes, no more." Inside the building, everything was white and glass and silence. Kellen moved fast, heart pounding. He found her in a small room with a wall-sized screen, her fingers moving across glowing numbers. She looked up and froze, her eyes wide but not surprised. "They said you let them take me," she said, her voice flat. Kellen's chest tightened. "I didn't know. I swear to you I didn't." Noah didn't cry. She never did. She just stared at him, then finally nodded. "Okay." They moved quickly, slipping past halls and cameras. As they reached the door, a voice called out. A tall man in a suit stood there, calm as the sea. "You're making a mistake," he said, looking straight at Noah. "You could change the world here." He added. Noah stepped forward. "I don't want to change your world." She replied, "I want to build my own." Kellen pulled her gently back and they disappeared into the shadows. They didn't stop running until the night swallowed them whole. Lena was waiting with a car and a burner phone. They drove for hours until they reached a cabin near the coast. It was quiet, far from the noise, far from the suits. Noah didn't speak for a long time, just stared at the fire. Finally, she pulled something from her bag, a small flash drive. "This has everything," she said. "They copied my work, so I copied it back." Kellen took it, confused. "What are we going to do with it?" he asked. "We're going to set it free," Noah said. They uploaded the files anonymously to every open-source academic site they could find. Equations, notes, diagrams, everything she had ever created. No names, no photos, just brilliance. And then they waited. At first, nothing happened. But within days, the files were everywhere. Scientists, students, and coders began to study the work. And they all asked the same question. Who wrote this? The media picked it up next. Mystery genius shakes the research world. Headlines said, offers started pouring in, interviews, scholarships, even job offers. But Noah didn't answer any of them. "I don't want fame," she said. "I just want space to breathe." They stayed in the cabin, walking by the ocean, cooking simple meals. Kellen took a job fixing computers at a local school. Noah enrolled under a new name. No tests, no interviews, just learning. She wrote in her notebook again, not just math, but letters to girls in shelters, to teachers, to herself. "You are not invisible," she wrote. "Your mind is not too much. It is just waiting for the right place to grow." Kellen read every word, heart full. One night, as they washed dishes, she asked, "Do you think I'll ever be normal?" Kellen dried his hands, looked at her. "You're not meant to be normal," he said. "You're meant to be free," and that was enough. Ending narration suggestion for YouTube. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Emotional Horizons. Tell us what part of Noah's journey inspired you the most. And remember, every story has a heart, and sometimes it takes just one person who believes to change someone's entire world.